for a good pistol, look no further than the Desert Eagle, my friend.
What's up guys, Skip You Africanus here, and in today's video we're going to be going over the 50GS from Modern Warfare 2. Or, as it's much more commonly known in real life, the Desert Eagle. Or, more specifically to this game, the Mark 19 variant of the Desert Eagle. Now, we're going to be going over Desert Eagles as a whole, so we're not going to specifically stick with the Mark 19 variant. We're also going to include the older school specials, like the Mark 7 and the Mark 1. Now, the Desert Eagle, it's definitely one of those pistols that, despite, I'll just say with utmost certainty, everyone knows about it. If you find I won't even say if you find someone that doesn't know about it, because you flat out won't find someone that doesn't know what this thing is. But, despite, you know, this pistol being very, very, very well known, I'd argue that it's actually probably one of the most misunderstood handguns in existence right now. To be honest, yeah, I can't really think of a gun that has more wrong information written about it than the Desert Eagle itself. So, again, while everyone knows about it, it's not really known too much about, aside from it being really big pistol in action movies. So with all that being said, let's get into this gun. Let's talk about what it's actually used for, how it works, because to be honest, this is definitely a very, very cool handgun with the system it uses. Just from a mechanical perspective, aside from the fact that, again, really big pistol. So we'll get into how this thing works, and just stuff like if it's actually used by militaries, because do they actually use this big 44/50AE/429/357, there's in quite a few calibers, handgun in military service, or is that just an action movie thing? Because let's admit that this thing looks pretty damn cool when it's shown in movies. So anyways, let's start with the origin of this thing. Now, the initial design idea was for silhouette shooting competition. To be honest, I really don't do that type of competitive shooting. I don't really know too much about it, but that's what it was for, was like silhouette shooting. At least on paper, I'm gonna be honest, when I take a look at this gun, like, yeah, the guy could say he developed it for that. He probably just developed it because he wanted to make a really powerful semi-automatic handgun, because at the time that this was being developed in the late 70s, there was actually a few semi-automatic handguns that were being chambered for big bore cartridges like this, like 44 mag, most famously being that Auto Mag 44. And, you know, I feel like that was one of the big pushers to getting this out to the market, to see if he could get, you know, a semi-automatic 44. And actually, what was cool enough with his design was it was a real 44 and not this 44 Auto Mag garbage. But anyways, that's going a little bit off side topic. But as mentioned, yes, it was developed as stated for silhouette target shooting, and then of course, you know, stuff like hunting and all that comes into mind. We'll go into the whole military service aspect of this thing in a minute, because I feel like that's definitely one of the most misunderstood parts of this handgun. But going into this handgun a little bit more, a common misconception is that these are Israeli firearms, and while that is technically true, they were produced in Israel for a good minute, they were actually developed by an American, Magnum Research. And the only reason that, you know, Israel had their hand in this was, well, IMI did help them develop the gun a little bit more. I guess you could say it does have some Israeli influence to it. And they really just, the reason that they're associated with Israel is because IMI came in and were like, hey, we'll help you develop like, just kind of fine-tune the gun a little bit. Not really develop it, and then we'll let you produce the gun in Israel. Now, currently, it's actually owned, Magnum Research is actually owned by Car Arms. They actually, you know, this company actually has a really, not company, but, this gun has a very weird thing of swapping between different companies and all that. But for the time being now, they are no longer being produced offshores, they are being produced in the United States by Car Arms. So anyways, going into this pistol a little bit further, I had mentioned that this pistol is very unique in how it works, and to be quite honest, the pistol itself, even if it wasn't in such a massive caliber, which, don't get me wrong, that makes it cool as hell, of course, But even if this thing wasn't in that caliber, the way that it actually works, in my opinion, alone is what makes this gun cool. So on the typical handgun, now, there's a variety of different handgun mechanisms, but for the most part, the typical handgun is going to be using the Browning-style tilting barrel action, where essentially the barrel and slide stay together, and then barrel tilts down to unlock and allow the slide to separate from it, and all that. That's just to maintain, you know, to keep the gas pressure at a safe level during cycling, so it doesn't overgas itself. There's that, and there's also, of course, just simple blowback, where the barrel doesn't do anything and just sits there. Now, obviously, with simple blowback, especially, this would not be sufficient for the 357 up to the 50 AE cartridge. No way in hell that a simple blowback is going to work with that unless you have a very, very, very massive slide and recoil spring. One that will make this thing no longer a handgun, but probably more a brick. And the tilting barrel, actually, kind of same thing. It's not going to really be able to handle the pressures of these cartridges. It can, but again, you're going to need to add a lot of mass to the gun and all that. So they went with an actual rifle system with this pistol. So as opposed to those two systems, this thing operates kind of like an M14, I would say. The way this gun works is you have this gas tube that runs under the barrel, starting at the very beginning of the barrel, and then ending right here at the end. And you have this piston right here that's actually connected to the slide. To add to this, you also have a rotating bolt, kind of like on an AR. And what happens is, when the round is fired, gas will go right through that tube and will push on that piston. What this does is it starts to push the slide back. However, the bolt has to actually rotate as it's locked into recesses in the barrel. So it'll push that slide back, the slide will act on some cams with the bolt, allowing the bolt to rotate. Once it's reached full rotation, then the slide will actually cycle all the way back, come forward, pick up a new cartridge, the lugs will then rotate into the recesses, and you're ready to fire the next shot. So again, it operates pretty much like a rifle, and, you know, to me at least, I think that, I mean, again, big cartridge and semi-automatic handgun's a cool thing. I think this gun would have been cool even in 9mm, and it definitely would have been very smooth shooting. Which that actually leads me to another small topic. How do these guns actually handle? So I got to have the privilege of shooting a very nice gold-plated one, or titanium-plated to look like gold. I got to put about 2 rounds through it. Now keep in mind, I used to shoot 44 mag very, very frequently. I've definitely put quite a few rounds to this Ruger Super Blackhawk in 44 Magnum, and usually I am in at least, I would say about half of what I've shot has been some very heavy 300 grainers. Definitely had some good recoil behind it, and then 240 grainers still gives you some good kick. Nowhere near the 300 grainers, but that being said, very used to the 44 mag cartridge. Now, the Desert Eagle comes in 4 different calibers, and the one that I shot is the one that everyone loves, the 50 Action Express. Now, I don't have a full 50 Action Express bullet, but I do have the casing from one, and as you can see, the 50 Action Express casing alone just makes the 44 look way smaller than it is. In fact, the 44 Magnum has no problem fitting inside of the 50 AE case. So, all that being said, since I'm used to 44, and I shot the 50 Action Express, you know, I was expecting the 50 Action Express to at least have a noticeable, you know, difference in recoil, like, kick harder. And when I actually fired the 50 Action Express, I'm not kidding when I say this, I'm being 100% honest, it was super comfortable, and my 44 mag with 300 grain loads, honestly, I felt like that kicked way harder than the big old 50 Action Express. So, these guns really do shoot smooth. I haven't had the privilege to shoot a 44 Magnum one. I would really like to, because if the 50 Action Express was honestly kicking less than my 44 mag loads, which granted I do hot run my 44 mag loads, but if it was kicking harder than kicking less than a 44 Magnum, I could only imagine what the 44 Magnum feels like inside of it. Now, a lot of this is in part due to, unlike on the standard revolver like what I shoot, this gun has a slide to kind of absorb some of the energy from the cartridge, so it will definitely shoot smoother. That's just, you know, it's a given. And You know, to add to this before we go into another topic, when I was doing some research on this, I went onto the accursed place known as Reddit, and, you know, someone was asking if, you know, these guns had any purpose or they're just really fun to shoot. To which you had someone that probably can't even lift up a can of soda mention that, they're not even fun to shoot. Bruh. I'm gonna call flat out bullshit. If you ever get the chance to shoot these are very, very, very fun to shoot. So anyways, though, going further on, I'm mentioning that these are very smooth shooting. Again, it's not like, you know, you're shooting a 22. I mean, there's obviously recoil. You can see this flipping my hand up, you know. It's not like no recoil, it's just, you can handle it. It's very fun to shoot. But anyways, all that being said, you know, it's, again, still got obvious recoil, and one of the big misconceptions with this handgun is its military service, because obviously you can use this for competition, people do. You can use it for hunting, people do. It's a very great pistol for that. But, you know, a lot of, you know, the popularity with this handgun, of course, comes from action movies, comes from soldiers running around with Desert Eagles, special forces, all that. So that begs the question, was this ever actually used in military/police service? I wasn't going to throw the police one in there because I think it's kind of obvious, but I'll throw it in there to encompass everything. Was this thing ever used for any type of government, you know, action movie style stuff? The answer is an overwhelming, resounding 100% no! The Desert Eagle, despite being shown in countless action movies, countless video games, and actually, I think it was shown in some TV shows, like some on the military channel. I could have swore, I'm not going to double check it right now, but I could have sworn that when I was little, I was watching, like, Deadliest Warrior, and they said that the IDF issued these. Full of absolute bullshit. The Desert Eagle is in no way used for any type of military service. I really dug for this because, like, I kind of knew it wasn't. I mean, let's be honest here, a handgun is not your main gun. You know, the recoil you're getting with this, with the mag capacity, I mean, just issue, like, you know, a Glock or a SIG, you know, you got 17 rounds and 9. Your rifle's your main weapon, not your pistol, and when you can't make good follow-up shots in case you miss, which is going to happen in a stressful environment, you know, that's not a good handgun. So I kind of figured that this was never, and I do very well mean never 100% ever used in any type of military police scenario. But, you know, I still really wanted to look into it because I was like, well, they've definitely used some weird stuff throughout history. And, you know, the closest thing that I had seen was Polish Grom units actually have them in inventory. Now, know this, when it says has an inventory, it doesn't, like, mean that they're actually using it. It's very common for inventories for various army, special forces, what have you, to have just a reference collection of firearms. I mean, you know, the U.S. Green Berets might have, you know, a bunch of AKs in their reference inventory. They're not issuing AKs. They just have them in inventory. And, you know, to be honest, it's a reference inventory. It's made to reference firearms, of course, you know, get a handling on and everything. It's very well the case that, again, given this gun will never be encountered in any type of, you know, combat scenario, it is very likely that the guy that's, you know, responsible for procuring firearms for that inventory really just wanted to shoot a Desert Eagle, and he found a bureaucrat that was dumb enough to think that anyone actually uses them, because I can't stress enough, no military, no police force. Yeah, you know, I'll even say, I guess, like, no paramilitary even uses Desert Eagles. They've never seen combat. But anyways, yeah, so very likely the only reason that one is in Grom inventory is because the guy just really wanted to shoot a Desert Eagle. Which I can fully understand because, as I mentioned, well, you know what, I won't even say from my experience. You know, the reason I wanted to shoot a Desert Eagle wasn't because I thought it'd be a smooth shooting handgun. I thought it'd be a very, very hard kicker. The reason I wanted to shoot one was because they're freaking cool. And I think aside from, you know, big bore handgun and, you know, the gas operating system, one really cool thing with these handguns is the cartridges they use themselves. Now, of course, you have the one we all know and love, 50 Action Express, the one that I got the privilege of shooting. But there's also 3 other cartridges that this pistol is chambered for, and I'm going to start off with the first 2 that I think are the definite coolest 357 Magnum and 44 Magnum. Now, these two were the original calibers for the Desert Eagle. The 50 Action Express wouldn't come around until the very late 90s. These were the original, you know, just cartridges for the gun. And what makes them cool, aside from just being full powerhouse rounds, is that they're also rimmed cartridges. And one thing that I always love hearing throughout various internet forums with the brightest of gun experts and all that, is that you cannot feed rimmed cartridges through semi-automatic firearms. Now, I know there's going to be comments saying, no, everyone's saying that it's just really difficult to do. That is most certainly not what they're saying. I have been told numerous times that you flat out cannot do it, and I need to remind people that there are plenty of semi-autos and rimmed cartridges that exist, and the Desert Eagle is one of them. Now, that being said, it is, of course, very difficult to actually chamber semi-automatic mag-fed guns with rimmed cartridges. There is definitely a reason why a lot of guns use rimless cartridges, but I always think that it's really neat when it's just a little, I don't know, just an engineering thing I think is just kind of neat when they actually do get it to work. And as I've mentioned, they've got it to work on quite a few guns. And I would even argue that the Desert Eagle being in chamber for these two cartridges, like standard 357 mag as well as standard 44 mag, is definitely one of the big things that helped it become as popular as it is. Because surely the 44 auto mag was featured in Hollywood, you know, quite a few movies and shows. But one big problem with that thing was, you know, the guy had taken the shortcut route to develop, you know, a rimless 44 cartridge. Well, when people see a gun that's in a weird caliber like that, I mean, yeah, they'll buy it. Maybe it'll even become popular, but more often than not, they're gonna see that weird caliber, and you know, you can't market it as it's chambered in 44 Magnum that everyone knows and loves. You gotta say it's chambered in this weird 44 auto mag. So when the Desert Eagle came out, they could at least say, you know, hey, it's chambered in flat out 44 Magnum. Go to the store, you can buy it. Unlike the other guy who's selling it in 44 auto mag, good luck if your gun store near you has the ammo, because when these guns were around, the internet didn't exist and you couldn't just, you know, go online and do some browsing and try to find some ammo. Now, we've mentioned the 357 Magnum, the 44 Magnum, and we went a little bit into the 50 Action Express. There is a fourth chambering for this gun, and it's actually a fairly recent one. They developed it in 2018. And it is called the 429 Desert Eagle, and this is a very neat round because, you know, what it is essentially it is a 50 Action Express necked down to a 44. So, unlike your standard 44 Magnum, this thing gets a little more powder to add to it. Now, I have heard that the performance is rather poor, and from what I was seeing, it did look like it was kind of a poor performer. I will say, though, on the Scipio channel, we are a very big fan of bottlenecked pistol cartridges. So going on from the cartridges, one thing that I did not mention with the 50 Action Express in particular is that the base of the cartridge is actually the same diameter as the 44 Magnum. So you will notice that on the 50 Action Express, unlike your standard rimless cartridge, the rim on the 50 Action Express is much smaller than the case. Kind of like a 458 SOCOM. And given that the diameter of the rim is exactly the same as a 44 Magnum, if you want to do a cartridge swap, all you need to do is just swap the barrel out. And I believe you do need to have different magazines. I thought you could actually use the same mags. I'll have to look it up later. But anyways, yeah, so all you have to do is just swap the barrel out. If you want to go to 357, you'll also have to swap the bolts because of, you know, that rim. But as mentioned, you know, the 429 Desert Eagle uses a 50 Action Express casing, so you could also just do a barrel swap and throw a 429 Desert Eagle barrel in there and be able to run that round. So anyways, I think that is going to do it for this actually rather long video on the 50GS from Modern Warfare 2, or as it's known in real life by every single person in existence, the Desert Eagle. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video as much as I personally enjoyed making it. The Desert Eagle is definitely a very fun pistol, and, you know, despite, you know, it's not ever been used in military service, I am very glad that they added to games because this gun is just flat out cool. So anyways, thank you all for watching, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next Guns of Modern Warfare 2 in real life video.